All right, gang, here we go again. We're looking at this term called passing, and that is with racial identity. So you could guess it might be easier for uh, very light skinned black people to move in an American society which is racially um, sensitive. And so this passing uh, was important for some of those people that were able to do it. But when you look at how laws started to work in the United States, and this idea of the one drop rule, that the quote unquote one drop of black blood makes you black. Think back to when I mentioned President Obama. What about society here? It is to put those people in their place. If we're talking about an America, say in the 1930s and 40s, there was a guy, Walter Plecker, who was the registrar of statistics or whatever in Virginia, and he's quoted as saying two races as materially divergent as the white and Negro, moral in morals, in mental powers, and cultural fitness, cannot live in close contact without injury to the higher. And you could guess that it's white that's going to be higher. So, thereby classifying anybody that isn't 100% white, boom, they go into that binary category of black. Indians, it doesn't matter to them. But this was struck down with that previously mentioned Supreme Court case, Loving versus Virginia, 1967. But that said, just again to see how the system worked, and if you, again, fortunate or unfortunate, I don't know how to say it, but if you were lucky enough maybe to have light skin and could pass as white, I don't know. I don't know what I would have done were in that position. But to show you kind of how some things have changed, when we look here um, at Rachel Dolezal, you surely, hopefully, remember her as she was outed by her family as lying about her race. She's since lied about a lot of other things too, but she was passing, as moving as a black person in society. And you shouldn't think, being that she was part of the NAACP, National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, there were lots of white people when that organization began. Whites were helping in, you know, in improving the lot for black lives. But to pass herself off as disingenuous, black studies, former college professor, heck, she may be even serving time now for tax evasion and not claiming certain things. I don't know. I read some other stuff on her. But it was an interesting, very interesting switch on the passing of racial identity, where a white woman now is trying to is able to take advantage of it for maybe, I guess, for a better life for herself. But it's kind of neat how things have evolved. Anyway, now this one is pretty important to me too. So racism doesn't just stop from white to black or vice versa. We see it within quote unquote races. Again, remember, this is a social construct. But for instance, in Indian society, they have a hierarchy. They have a caste system in Hindu India. But the caste, the casta that you saw earlier in Latin America, you saw it there too. And the top to bottom hierarchy from the people of different castes went from the lightest skinned priests all the way down to the darkest skinned farmers. And that's think about how white people talk about guys with farmer tans. That's not usually a positive connotation. There is something, with having a red neck or a farmer tan. It says something about your station in life, your class. So that kind of moves around in class and not race. But while I'm showing you this, I want to show you Muhammad Ali. So Muhammad Ali had white people in his family tree. In fact, one of his great grandfathers was from Ireland, for goodness sakes. And so he what Ali was a master manipulator. He was good at talking. He was good at selling things, fights and whatnot. Um, and he would always talk about how pretty he was. I'm pretty. I'm pretty. Why I'm bringing this up, though, is because how much he denigrates another African American who happens to be darker skinned than him, and that's a guy named Joe Frazier. Now, Joe Frazier, you can see here that what I've written, I copied off of an article I'd found. He calls him an Uncle Tom. He works for the enemy. Now, this is when you see he was Cassius Clay before he adopted a Muslim name of Muhammad Ali and fell in with Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam, African Americans in America, different from just Islam. But Joe Frazier helped him out, gave him money and helped him out when he lost his belt and stuff for not going to fight in Vietnam. And listen, this is important too, so I'm going to quote him. So I hope I don't offend anyone, but it's a quote. Why won't you go fight in Vietnam? They asked him. He says, the Viet Cong, never called me nigger. Never, they didn't do anything to me. I'm just going to go over there and fight the white man's war, killing other brown and different skinned people. So he did stand up for minorities and African Americans, but then in a turn, he did the most blatantly racist thing. So I've got the picture here. You can look this up. I found it. I hope it's still up there when you decide to look at it. If you look at it, Muhammad Ali versus Gorilla Frazier. So they ended up having another fight. They had 3 historic fights, Frazier and Ali did. Just some of the greatest heavyweight boxing you'll ever see in your life. Fantastic fighters. Frazier beat him in the first one, and then Ali got him on the other 2. But it was going to be fought in Manila, the Philippines. And again, to turn a phrase, Muhammad Ali talked about the thriller in Manila. Well, what rhymes with Manila? Gorilla. And so it's hard to see. I got this one where he was on this video. He's punching this gorilla, the conscience of Frazier. And this is him holding up. He could have picked anything if he was going to say, oh, well, it's his conscience and I'm going to do this to Frazier's conscience or whatever. But no, he picked a gorilla. And there's a time when he has Ali has a little sharper features of his nose, and he made fun of Frazier's dark skin, called him smelly, he got a flat nose, and he talked about all these just horrific things, and obviously Frazier was not too happy about it. I was too young to know about this, but I did watch a lot of these fights when I was a kid, but to not know about this racism. But I'm quite happy to say that this is Smoking Joe Frazier. I met him in Philadelphia, and he was just a wonderfully kind gentleman. Told him how much my daddy and I liked him. My father hated Ali, but a lot of people did. He didn't want to be loved by white America. He was very antagonistic. And this is the thing. This is the other thing. Then, as much as Ali was feted, the greatest, and everybody just fawning over him and stuff. He did apologize. I should be honest here about it too, and truthful and forthright. He did apologize to Frazier, but it was much, much later, well later in the game, after neither one of them was fighting anymore. But even Frazier, he was a blue collar American kind of guy, and he thought America, should have thought much more highly of him, and not the guy who spent all of his life, fighting against what he thought was America and what was possible for him. So that said, I'm trying to show you that there's more than just the prototypical A against B kind of, situation here. Your textbook also looks at this place called Gorée Island here, and it's in Dakar, which is in the capital of Senegal. And this, I think, somewhere along the lines of 3 to 4 million people would embark from this doorway and off this island and never return. We know to Africa. We know this, guys. Yes, slavery did not begin with whites in Africa. Slavery had been parts of many societies all throughout history. The real difference with the transatlantic slave trade was the sheer volume of people. 12, 14 million. It's hard. I can't remember exact numbers, but we're ballparking it here. And that's a lot of people. And what it does, of course, is fracture society. And this is a basic misunderstanding of Africa herself. When people say, well, why would black brothers put other black brothers in bondage? And that's about as ignorant a question as could be asked. In the same way that there was Native American diversity all across the Americas before Europeans came, what about Africa? There's literally thousands and thousands of tribes of people. Well, I shouldn't blow it up too much, but there is way over 1,000 different ethnic group tribes of people. He's not going to go and knock his next door neighbor in the head. They're part of the same ethnic group. They're going to go a village or two over, and they're going to take those people that don't believe the way they do or talk the way they do. And in fact, if I take him and sell him to these guys in these boats, now I've got more, land. But it certainly fractures African society. And again, the scale of this thing is what's very different than, the slavery of the past, when you are talking about millions of people. And so it was important for Black America to see, it's kind of like, T'Challa just passed away. Chadwick Boseman has just passed away. And I remember as a kid, he plays Black Panther, among other things. He was Jackie Robinson, too. I like baseball, so I like that movie as well. But I had all these superheroes and comic books when I was a kid to look up to, and they were all white. They'd give you a token woman in there every once in a while, which is Wonder Woman or whatever, depending on which comic series. But there certainly wasn't a lot of superheroes that were black for the black kids. And it was really sad to see all those little boys with all of their Marvel, superhero, figurines and dolls and things like that. Sad because of his passing, and I was too. I liked all those movies, but it tells you about leaders, and so it was very important for Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, to consider Africa more than a bunch of shithole states, which I think where I'm going with this. I've been to Africa a couple of times. I've been to South Africa and Zimbabwe, guys, and I hope to do some more traveling there because there's a lot of cool culture to see there. I know it. I just need the time to do it. I hope you get a chance to go as well. If we look at race and European colonization, guys, some of the worst things you can see happening here do occur, but it could be expounded and elaborated upon and made to look like, as you're seeing in this picture here, of La Leyenda Negra, the barbarity of these Spaniard conquistadors, flaying babies and all these things. Well, some of this is making one colonist look better than the other colonist. So this stuff happened, but in any of their colonies, it wouldn't have been grand. I left out parts of this just because I didn't want it to be too long. But if you were to look at the Belgian Congo, King Leopold, one person owned all that. Well over 1 million people were killed. And the people who were enslaved, if they ran away, they had their hands cut off. They made the other slaves wear a necklace with the hands that they cut off. I mean, it is just, when we're going to tell about blacks being, or people of color being in a lower station, a subhuman or something like that, but yet it's the white people that pull some of this stuff off too. It clearly is an issue of race, and whoever gets to frame the story gets to tell it the way they want it told. If we look at the Hutu and the Tutsi here, we know that identity cards were made for these people. And we'll be looking at genocide, but this is a genocide. 800,000, mostly Tutsis, were killed. And how did the Hutu talk about them? Well, I'm going to pause it here and come back in the next one to explain this one a little bit more and how European colonization played a role in it.